Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. We have with us a panel of experts on the topic of compliance. I wish to introduce the roundtable and welcome back our hosts from Vanguard Dealer Services, Mickey Quinn, who is the president of Vanguard. Mickey, welcome. Tim Allen, the director of compliance. Everybody will know Tully Williams, all about the hours at the Nilo Company. Jim Sabino is here from All American Ford, and Ed Roberts at Bozard Ford Lincoln. Welcome everybody to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you, Ted.
Tim, you and I were talking recently, and there's a lot of scrutiny happening now for dealerships with the CARS Act, and a lot more to come. So, Tim, do you want to set the stage for our panel today?
Yes, so the CARS Act that was just passed is going to be beginning to be enforced in July of this year, and there's a huge amount of extra scrutiny on dealerships now, and deceptive practices specifically in regards to advertising, how numbers are presented, the used cars and prices, and the way we have products. Not only that, but the products themselves and the value of the products, which ties into every aspect of the dealership's business. So they're looking very hard at that.
Mickey, is this something that Vanguard is, not just on the radar, but, working hard to help educate their dealers on?
Yeah, I think, I've been doing this for over 30 years of my life in the automobile space, and I learned in 5 minutes that federal and state governments had a particular liking towards car dealerships to gather revenue from. And I think this is even stronger than what we've seen before. And the concern here is the interpretation of the law, right? It's so vague that it's going to create difficulties for the dealers. And the only thing they can do is dot every I and cross every T. And, that's what we're in the business of doing at Vanguard, is making sure that every dollar earned is a dollar kept. And we try to keep our dealers' pictures out of the newspapers and stuff like that as best we can. But rest assured that the state and federal governments are coming and they're looking for revenue. And it's our job to make sure that they don't get any.
Tim, you shared with me recently an article just a couple weeks ago on some worst practices that were in the news. I don't know if you want to share some of that with us, but it kind of took me by surprise. It included used cars and certification.
Yeah, so we won't get into anything by name specifically because we're not looking to do that to anybody, but the article was released directly from the FTC, and essentially what was going on is a dealership was charging customers for certification for vehicles that were factory certified and already had the money figured in on. So let's say, for example, you certify a vehicle, you pay the fee, and the price of the car is the price of the car. They're essentially telling customers, here's the price of the car, but you want it certified, you have to pay another $800 for certification when that was already figured in, or advertising a vehicle as certified when it's not actually factory certified. They have to be very careful on that. But this dealership came under scrutiny for that purpose, charging customers extra money for a certified car.
Hey, what I found interesting in that was they actually named names of the general manager and some of the other employees in the dealership, which is very, very interesting take on what's happening. My point of reference is to a car dealer, even if you do everything perfectly and you do everything correctly, the state and federal governments are still going to try and come and get some revenue from you some way, somehow. So if you're doing some of these deceptive practices, you may as well put a sign in the front door, come get revenue.
Holly, you're out in California. You've seen a lot of things happening out there. How does this all play into fixed operations?
Well, the way I look at it is that we've been in business for 102 years, and I'm not going to ruin it over a certification for $800. And I think it boils down to is that what kind of a company and what kind of a business are you? Yes, the government is annoying. The government, and what they do is they're trying to make sure that dealerships don't rip people off, right? And the goal is that if you're set to be in the repeat referral business, you're not going to rip people off. Yet now there's a lot of training. So we have trained and trained and trained. Our state associations help us with that. And of course, Dennis, our variable director, is all over that. We're having training actually this week and next week. But so you have to be constantly on it because humans make mistakes. But here's the thing. If the culture at your store is not to rip people off, you got nothing to worry about. Now, you need great partners like Vanguard to educate you and tell you what's going on. But if your principle at your store is about making sure we're in a repeat referral business and making sure that we don't do anything deceptive, you have nothing to worry about. And to me, that's the big thing. California says, "Oh, Tully, how do you work in California?" I just don't rip anybody off. God bless America.
Ed,
Hey,
you're,
Tully, did you say 102 years?
102 years.
That's impressive. You don't look a day over 90 to me.
Thank you, sir.
Ed, you're in Florida at Bozard, Ford, Lincoln. Congratulations to you. Every month you're setting new records in terms of volume. Great job in fixed operations and service. I know you've surpassed now 100 technicians. Big work on the mobile operation, going from 10, already the leader in the country, to in the 30s and 40s and beyond with your mobile vehicles. Ed, how are you seeing it there as COO?
Well, I like what Tim said there. They want to keep us protected, and we're not attorneys, and we don't know all the elements of those laws. And laws are written in ways that they need to be deciphered and broken down for us. And we need partners like Vanguard to come in and keep us in compliance. Unfortunately, these laws get written, like Tully said, because there's people out there that want to double dip, and they don't want a customer for life. They want a customer once. They want that transactional transaction, and they're done. And then so they want to make as much as they can off of that. And that's why these laws get put into place. And we need a partner to help us understand those laws and keep us in compliance. Whether we are building customers for life or not, we still need to be compliant. And I'm sure every one of you guys have read some of these laws that's out there. They're pages long. And I just need somebody to give me clip notes. Tell me what I need to do. Let me dot the I's, cross the T's, and let me keep trucking, because we can't grow if we're trying to analyze everything.
Ed, spot on. Okay, it's tough to know everything that's in these laws and rules, and you really, to have a checklist or a partner to help keep you, within the guardrails, Ed, would be super important.
Absolutely. Keep our eye on the prize. We keep pushing forward.
Mickey, do you know this fella to your right, Jim Sabino at All American Ford?
I know him very well. He's been a customer of ours for almost 20 years, a great customer, I should add. Jim comes from an organization that's off the mean streets of New Jersey, right? And everyone thinks, hey, go to New Jersey and get your head beat in a car dealership. Nothing could be further from the truth. At Jim's organization, I'm very familiar with the two owners there. And nothing is more important to them than taking care of their customer and their reputation. It's their name not their name on the building, but it's their name behind everything. And I will tell you, these are guys that, grew up in the rough tumble world of the retail car business in the tri-state area of New York, where every dollar is hard to make. And these two guys will never take a dollar that did not belong to them, or they felt it belonged in the customer's pocket. I cut my teeth with these guys almost 20 years ago and learned a valuable lesson that it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And so Jim's organization is very big that way. And I think Jim's been there for longer than 20 years, to give you some idea of what stability means to them. And obviously, if you have stability in your employees, you're going to have a very good process for taking care of your customers.
Jim?
Very true.
Jim, tell us your view of all these things, because you've been there at what is now All American for quite some time. And how does all this play into fixed ops in your operation there?
Correct. So Mickey is right. I'm here 23 years, and Mickey has been above and beyond a truly valued partner through this whole journey that we've been on. He's helped us tremendously with all kinds of products, compliance, and we've had such a great and successful relationship over the years, and continue to in the future. Listen, it's all about, Tully touched on it before, repeat referral, right? That's what makes the wheel go round. So you want to be as transparent and on the table as possible in every transaction that is taken, whether it's in the back in fixed ops or in the front in new and used cars or in F&I products. So, Vanguard brings such a value and checks and balances, and it keeps us protected as best as possible to keep the money, that you earn, that you keep it, and that you don't pay it back in fines and for getting tripped up on a technicality or some type of wrongdoing that might have been going on. But, there's a lot of checks and balances that we put on a daily basis. And a lot of that is implemented through the Vanguard products. It just keeps the integrity through the entire transaction. So All American is a much better, reputable establishment to do business because of Vanguard, and that's a fact, and it really is. We take a lot of pride and integrity in our business and our customers that continually come back and return to release or purchase products, that continue to be loyal to our service department and our collision centers. So there's a lot to be said about that. And what he said about the two owners is, yes, it's all about what you keep. These guys are on the ground every day, 6 days a week. They're here, they see it, they hear it, they grind it. So that's what it is. But we do it the right way. Never any smoke and mirrors, never any shady tactics at all. Ever. It's not tolerated. Zero tolerance from the get.
And guys, and Ed and Jim and Tully, you can speak to this. When you have a long-term relationship like a company like Vanguard, when a guy like Jim Sabino calls me one day on a Saturday afternoon and says, "Hey, Mick, I've got a really upset customer here in my service department. They have a service contract from you guys. Hey, they missed a couple of oil changes and they need a new engine and it's $1,800. And I'm looking at a problem here if I can't get this fixed." Jim will tell you that we're saying to him right there and then, "Fix the car, Jim.
Yeah.
We'll deal with it next week, or we'll do whatever." I don't think that dealerships, maybe some do, but I don't think you can have that kind of relationship with the manufacturer, because the manufacturer people coming into your dealership are not empowered to say to a Jim Sabino, "Yeah, it's a $3,500 engine. What can you do it for internally?" Jim will say, "I can get it done for $2,900. And I'll say, "Jim, fix the car." You need to have those type of relationships. Those are the things that help you in compliance, right? Because we don't have a disgruntled customer going to the Better Business Bureau or somewhere else and making a complaint about the dealership, where it may snowball into something else where you have a state or federal officials coming looking at what you're doing. Instead of what we're doing in that situation is we're taking a disgruntled customer, being able to give Jim the empowerment to fix their car, and now we have a customer walking out of there thinking, "Well, I tell you what, I know where I'm going to buy my next car from." And you cannot put on paper the value of a relationship like that. And I think Jim, Jim and I run at each other in restaurants every now and then too. So the fact of the matter is that these long-term relationships with companies like ours, and there are many great companies like Vanguard out there. I just happen to think we're the best, right? But I'm sure but it's that relationship, that understanding of what a Jim Sabino or a Tully or a Ned is going through on a daily basis, where we're empowered when we answer the phone to make sure that whatever that issue is there and then, because it could be a $3,500 engine, a $1,500 transmission. If we don't act and do the right thing, then we could be looking at a $50,000 or $75,000 lawsuit. So I can't impress the importance of how compliance works when you have a relationship like the relationship Jim Sabino and I have.
Yeah. Very true, Mickey. You make there's no hesitation. You make the decision on the spot. Not, "I'll call you back tomorrow. Let me look into it." It's instant.
Ted,
Because we know that's the one point, that consumer that paid $2,500 or $3,000 for a service contract, and they hear that, "Sorry, it's just not covered." We know the first phone call they're making when they leave there is that, well, they don't even have to make a phone call anymore. It's the digital age. They walk out there on their phone and they post on Facebook to their 650 friends that All American Ford didn't take care of them.
Yep.
That's truly understanding the value of a business partnership right there. And we all cross those paths. We all run into those obstacles, and it's how we overcome them that intensifies that partnership.
And listen, we're all very fortunate. We work for very lucrative organizations that make some money. We don't need to cut a corner to upset a customer to see it, to make 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 or 20,000. We're all very profitable companies. Our people are all instructed that we do not do anything that would bring embarrassment to our dealer clients or to us. And if that means, last week we had a $60,000 transmission issue at a Porsche store. That transmission was replaced at $58,000. That Vanguard Dealer Services stepped up and did. There are not many companies in the United States of America that do what we do that'll get behind a $60,000 claim that was turned down. So remember, car dealers, when you're getting involved with companies like ours, no disrespect to the guy working out of the trunk of his car, or he's an entrepreneur or the basement of his home. obviously an entrepreneur, but just think about it. If you have a major problem down the road, make sure the guys that you're dealing with have the financial backing to take care of you.
Tully, you've got the oldest Porsche store in the country, and I believe you have the newest one as well. Do you want to speak to any of that?
You know, it is right. I mean, when we look at our relationship with our providers like Vanguard, right? The issue is that it has to be a relationship. It's not like, how do we not pay the claim? It's called, how do we pay the claim? It's the service provider's job to make sure that things are covered or not covered, right? And when there's gray area, right? Gray area, customers don't understand gray area. And the goal is that we have to be flexible, because is what Mickey said, is that one customer leaves upset might affect 10 to 20 minimal, right? And we have to think of it that way. And then our partners have to think of it that way, right? Because the best thing you can ever do to a customer is what? Sell them a service contract, because we get the best trade in, and they have yes answers when they come in the service drive. Yes, it's covered. Yes, it's covered. It's free. It's free. And then they trade the car and they buy another one. And guess what they do? They buy another service contract. And we have a great trade that is what? Already recon for us. So the goal is, it's a great cycle, and you have to have a great relationship with your F&I product providers. It is a must.
Mickey, I visited Tully in Sacramento a few months back, and one of the things I noticed that was unique about his 10 different dealerships was the structure in the way it's set up. Not only do they have beautiful facilities, but sales and service and parts, fixed operations, they're all one. They're not under separate silos. He took the walls down, and in the showroom, or what is the showroom, they not only sell vehicles, but that's where the service advisors are. And that's, and Tully, you might want to speak to that. You got service managers there, and you've got a whole different atmosphere where everything works together as one. Fixed and sales are together.
I think that what you're seeing today is manufacturers realize that, because, you know, when we build these monster buildings, as Ed just built a beautiful building down there for Lincoln, you know, Ed doesn't have a lot of say in the matter. He has a little say in the matter, but we don't have a lot of say in the matter. So we are building a beautiful $22 million Porsche building as the newest Porsche dealer in the United States. There's very gray area, but the concept of open concept, I really think, is the best thing that's ever come, as you see some of our luxury brands embrace. There is no walls. There is no glass. Our latest remodel of our BMW store down south from us is, what we did is we took all the glass out, because it was, you know, it was 7 years old. The glass was in the way. So now the service and parts and sales are all in the same room. And that's what we want, right? We've got to have that open relationship, because what's the best thing a salesperson can do is say hello to their customer that's in the service drive. And what is the best thing a customer can do is wander around on the sales floor. So the goal is we have to have an open concept, and everybody is happy, and everybody understands that sales helps service, and service feeds the sales department.
Yeah, you know, just speaking to that, Tully, because we're talking about compliance, I think that's super strong, because the breakdown in compliance is usually in one or the other departments, where an employee is not trained correctly to deal with the situation, right? And we send a disgruntled customer out of the showroom who gets a hold of an attorney, and that attorney automatically thinks class action lawsuit. Wow, this guy's building a $22 million Porsche dealership. He's got plenty of money. I've got nothing but time. And I think that, you know, I manage compliance very simply. We nip everything in the bud as quickly as possible. We don't sit around a table saying, well, that customer may be incorrect. No, how much is it? Can we make the customer satisfied? Will our clients be satisfied? Yes. Make the deal, make it go away, and we're compliant. Because my favorite story is, a number of years ago, I was involved in a deal where a consumer came in back to the dealership and said, hey, you guys charged me $75 for my registration fee, but it came in at $53. Can you guys give me back my $22? And you can imagine on a busy Saturday afternoon in a showroom, what the sales manager did ask may or may not have said to that consumer about $22. But anyway, they didn't get the $22. They left. And 3 years later, that dealership settled a $2.3 million class action lawsuit, because they went back in 5 years and picked up every $22 and $23 that they didn't refund to the customer. So the idea here is nip it in the bud. make it go away and make it go away quickly.
And part of that too, just touching
Can I
on
just chime
what you
in
said
just
about
one thing, Tim, is that
oh, go ahead.
it starts with your dealer. It starts with the dealer has that ability to say, take care of the customer. Sorry to interrupt, but that is so important because a lot of dealers are insulated or they, get all the money, get all the money. That is not the right answer. The right answer is we embrace and we're going to make sure it happens.
I have a funny story of that with Jim Sabino's boss, his partner, a number of years ago. Excuse me, had a very fancy Mercedes-Benz car, and he purchased a tire and wheel program from us at Vanguard. And it seemed like every third day, Jimmy was calling me saying, "Hey, we need a new rim." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" But it got to the point where the dealer principal met me in the showroom one day and said, "Do you guys really do this for all these consumers? You take care of all these rims?" And I said, "Well, maybe not to the extent that we like you, or we're getting 10 rims a year or 13 rims a year. But yes, these programs are specifically designed to support the consumer and make sure that you as a dealer don't have problems with compliance. Compliance is it's a gray area, but it only becomes a problem when you have a disgruntled customer, right? And that's where it escalates from there. So for me, compliance begins and ends with taking care of the customer. Now, we know there are going to be some difficult customers come through the showroom, and sometimes we have the attitude that that person's not going to bully me. I'm going to stand up and, they're not getting their $750 or their $1,500. What a waste of time that is, and a bad idea, because you lose every single time. There's as Tully and Jimmy and the other, and Ed will tell you, there's a David and Goliath attitude when you end up in a courtroom with a consumer and a judge. The judge is looking at Tully Williams building a $22 million facility for Porsche, and Mr. and Mrs. Joe Public standing in front of him wanting to get a $2,500 claim approved. Well, I think we all know who's going to win. So compliance begins and ends at the very beginning.
Tim, let me come to you, and let me also ask you about how important education is as far as what you do with dealers. Tim, if you would.
Yeah, and that speaks to what Mickey had said about the training. Sometimes there's just a lack of communication, but how many places do you go where there's actually a formal compliance training program in place or a compliance management system? When I was learning F&I, I was thrown in the office and I didn't have any formal compliance training. It was, all right, here, you need to do this, 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 and that. And a lot of times in the sales end, we're so busy and things are just so maneuvering along with customers where it's sell cars, do F&I, where that kind of goes by the wayside. So a big part of the training program, which is extremely important, but gets overlooked, is having a compliance management system for everyone to follow, but having a specified training program for everyone to follow. And that's another thing that Vanguard brings as a partner to these dealerships is we will do that compliance training. We will help you design a compliance management system. Even as an example, how many dealers do not have minimum maximum pricing guidelines? So per example, an F&I manager might make $3,000 on an F&I product. And we might think, great, we made $3,000, but the maximum benefit to the customer is only $5,000. Well, under the new cars regulations, they're looking at that as a deceptive and unfair practice. But if you don't have a minimum maximum pricing guideline in place, whose fault is it really? We're relying on the F&I manager maybe to have a different ethics code or set of code, but if we don't put those guidelines in place, they're doing their job. They're trying to make the most amount of money. So it falls on both parties, and that's what we bring. We'll establish the profit that you want to make, what makes it fair to all your consumers. Say, okay, here's your maximum, here's your minimum. You cannot go above or below. And this way, when they come and do audits and they're looking for the state and federal governments to make money, they can't say, well, you sold this service contract to Thule for $5,000 and you sold the same exact service contract to Mickey for $1,000. What's the deal here?
Yeah, to piggyback on that a little bit, compliance has to be trained at the F&I office, right? It's got to be, and the federal government and the state governments, while they're constantly looking to pick the pocket of the car dealer, they make it relatively easy for them to protect themselves. So what Tim talked about there was a maximum and a minimum selling price guide. There's no regulation that says, well, you have to make your maximum you have to stop at this maximum, right? Or this minimum. You can set those guidelines. And what a car dealer wants to protect themselves against is what we call rogue employees. 20 years ago, a business manager could go crazy in the F&I office, do all sorts of things, and the poor car dealer that really may not have didn't know anything about it until it was too late, bore the brunt of the problem. If those dealers today put these policies in place, like Tim was talking about, a maximum and minimum selling price, some guidelines for what they can do with a customer and what they can't do, anyone violating that at the dealership level becomes a rogue employee and protects the dealer against only the deals that that employee was working on, which is huge, right? And if the dealer then obviously finds out that that employee went against their policies, there's obviously either there has to be some consequences, even up to the point of firing, and the dealer's protecting themselves. But I have to tell you, I'm shocked that how many car dealers I go to today and realize that they don't have these simple policies in place that truly protect them. And like I said, some people think it's daunting, FTC regulations, this, that, and the other. There are some very simple things that you can put in play to protect yourself from a compliance standpoint, that's for sure.
Tim Allen, not just on cars, but on safeguards as well. Now that that's in effect, a lot of things that you can help dealers prepare for there.
Yeah, that's actually one of the #1 areas we see when we go into dealerships every day that are getting violated. There's deal jackets sitting around. The F&I offices aren't locked. The computers aren't locked. You can go in, sit down in front of a computer and pull up Dealer Track or Route 1 and get all the information you want. And, you know, the thing with the safeguards, and it's pretty clear, but there is that little gray area as well, where you don't necessarily have to lock an office. You have to lock the non-public private information. So if you have an open concept or you have a dealer where the F&I manager's office doesn't lock, that's fine as long as the deals are stored under lock and key. So they have to be in a drawer, they have to be locked at all times, and only people that are authorized to access that non-public private information should have access to it. So safeguards is our #1 area of opportunity that we see. But the other part of that, the backup to even the F&I parts, which Mickey had touched on, is how easy it is to protect yourselves. There's a lot of dealers now that get lulled into the electronic age and say, we store all our OFACs and our red flags and everything on the computer. We don't print them out and put it in our deal jacket. But if the government's coming in to do an audit and they can't find it in the deal jacket, they're going to go to a busy employee and say, hey, we need you to show us these and we need you to show them now. Or maybe they give you a day or two, depending on the situation. But what if you can't find it? That's #1. #2, what if you get hacked? How many systems have we seen get hacked before where data is lost? And the question I ask everybody when they tell me we do electronic only is, would any NFL team on any given Sunday take the field without a backup quarterback? Why wouldn't you take 10 seconds to print the cleared compliance information and store it in the deal jacket as a backup to your electronic storage just to make sure you're safe?
Yeah, I mean, the concept is don't give an inch, right? Do the extra work so then when someone comes in who really doesn't know what they're looking for and can get confused easy, you should be able to have it ready and accessible to them so that they don't get upset and annoyed and decide that, hey, I'm going to ruin your day and expand this search to the last 2 years of your business, right? So it's very important to nip it in the bud, like he says. There are so many little things that car dealers can do to protect themselves that so many aren't doing.
Everybody, we're here at the end of January. We're about 4 weeks into the year, 11 months ahead of us. Want to do a quick lightning round with everybody, 30 seconds. You're speaking to your peers, how they can best prepare themselves for the year ahead with some of these things with cars, safeguards. I'd like to start with Tully Williams, come over to Jim Sabino, Ed Roberts, Tim Allen, and I'll let Mickey bring it home. NADA, by the way, is at the end of the week, so all this is coming into play. So quick lightning round for your peers, starting with our friend Tully.
Culture in your store. Don't rip your customers off. Have great partners like Vanguard with quality training constantly.
Jimmy?
All right. Listen, again, Mickey touched on it. It comes from the top down. The culture of the store has to be transparent. No funny games, no funny business. Secure your sensitive material, all your documents properly secured, stored, locked, and treat your customers with value, integrity, and respect, and look for that repeat and referral.
Jim, I'm trying to get as good with the recap as you, but I've been watching on a couple panels, so I'm taking notes. Ed Roberts, advice for your peers.
Dealers are notorious for dealing with problems by not dealing with problems. And think about what Mickey said with the $22 tag refund and what that turned into. And think about the stuff that Tim talked about with not being in compliant. Don't wait until someone tells you that you're not compliant, because it's the wrong ones telling you you're not compliant. Reach out to a partner, put things together, put safeguards in place, and move forward and grow your business.
Tim Allen.
So I would just recommend look at all of your systems. If you don't have a compliance management system, we can help you make one. Anyone can help you put it in place, your minimum maximum pricing guidelines. It's never too late to do that. And to approach every transaction, whether it's in sales, service, or F&I, with honesty and transparency. We all know the 300% rule, 100% products, 100% customers, 100% of the time. I go by the 500% rule, which is 100% honesty, then 100% transparency, to 100% of your customers with 100% of the applicable products 100% of the time. So look at your whole overview on compliance in your systems and make sure they're in place.
Mickey Quinn, Vanguard Dealer Services.
Hey, we just came off 3 of the most profitable years in the history of the car business, if not the most 3 profitable years. And I think we've already begun to see that starting to decline a little bit, right? In volumes and gross profits on the front end of the deal. And for the last few years, F&I probably took a little bit of a back seat because I don't want to say it was easier, but it's certainly with low interest rates and consumers really looking for cars, it was a retail person's heaven. And I think car dealers have got to be careful as we go into the decline in profits. We have to make sure that F&I, who have been used to making substantial amount more money over the last few years than they were previously, that they don't go into bad habits. So the dealer has to be ultra diligent, certainly this year, to make sure that even though you're making less money than you were, we're still very profitable. It's fantastic to see these entrepreneurs doing that well. But just have your eye on the ball and make sure that someone who you're paying a lot of money to isn't slowly but surely destroying your reputation, and you'll wake up one morning and not know it. Put guidelines in place that once someone starts doing something that doesn't sound right, it shows up immediately. And that's what companies like ours do. And I'm sorry for going long on this, but it's very important to note, many car dealers that we meet, the biggest ones and the smallest ones, when we talk about compliance, they look us right in the eye and say, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, or we spend millions of dollars a year with attorneys to make sure that we're compliant. The only thing I would say to you is, I have yet to meet the attorney who sat on a Saturday afternoon delivering 14 cars, spotting 14 cars and get them out the door. So I don't know how that person could look at a deal jacket and get the same results from an analysis that someone like me or Tim or some of our other people who have spent over 30 years in the retail business. So I would say to you, yes, it's important to use the attorneys because that's what the courts and the judges look for. But if you want a real clean analysis of what's going on in your deal jackets, have somebody from an agency or someone who sat in the F&I office for a number of years go through that, and you will get your eyes opened to the things that we bring to the table that these very, very expensive attorneys don't.
Mickey, how does our audience take the next step to learn more about Vanguard Dealer Services?
We're on the website of VanguardDealerServices.com. Last month, we had over 1,650 rooftops from new car franchises remit business to us. So we certainly have the law of large numbers when we look at compliance and we look at everything else. And I will tell you that for me, over the course of the 22 years that I've been with Vanguard, 23 years coming, never before in the last 24 months have I seen an interest in compliance like our dealers have. It's not just about the money, right? I mean, these are great entrepreneurs and great capitalists and provide hundreds and hundreds of thousands, not millions of jobs on a daily basis in the United States. But these men and women are truly interested in their reputation and their family's reputation. For many of them, it's second, third, and fourth generation. Their grandfather started these businesses, and they don't want their name in the paper. They don't want their name on these lawsuits. And if you look at every one of them, you will see that for the most part, it's a rogue employee has created the problem, and the dealer didn't have the guidelines in place to protect them. They're simple. Reach out to us. We'll come and give you an analysis for free. We are here. The last thing that we want to do is for our clients to give any of their money back to state or federal governments. They do enough of that in taxes. So we want to try and hold on to it as much as we can. So You can go on a website and get my phone number, my email, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to send some of my people to do an analysis of your deals for you. And you will, I promise you, I'll buy you dinner if you don't get your eyes opened.
There we have it, everybody. Mickey Quinn, Vanguard Dealer Services. Want to thank Tim Allen from Vanguard, Tully Williams from the Nilo Company, Jim Sabino from All American Ford, Ed Roberts from Bozard Ford Lincoln. Everybody, Vanguard Dealer Services.
And Tully, can you put one of those 911 convertibles aside for me, please? And so, can get me a 99-month or 999-month payment plan, please. Well, good for you. Hey, nice job, everybody. Thank you.
Everybody, Vanguard Dealer Services here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.